Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. I was watching a couple of movies this last couple of days, and I'm noticing more and more that our culture as a gun community is seeping into every aspect, from comic books to movies to music. You're seeing advertisements. I'm seeing them more and more for things associated with the 2A. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of hilarious that you see politicians right now gunning for assault weapons. Yet the AR-15 or the AR style rifle is so ubiquitous in the United States that it's like saying Toyota Camry or Honda Accord. They're everywhere. Or in the Southwest, F-150 or F-250 or Silverado. You say those and you know it's a truck. Or you say the Accord or the Camry, you know it's a car. That's kind of what they're doing when they're saying the AR nowadays. You see it everywhere. John Wick has one, two different types, one in a pistol caliber, one in a 5.56. You see the bad guys opposite of him using them or SIG patrol rifles, their 5.52 or 5.56 version of their Swiss rifle, military rifle that they civilianized for the American public. It's everywhere. So I don't understand how there's a set of politicians that don't see that it's embedded, that 2A culture, or 2A in general, is everywhere. If you look at video games, my kids love the hell out of the video games that they play because of their realism in some of the weapons that they choose, or that they can choose from. Now, some of them I've ridiculed the hell out of, even though they're video games, because you don't take a Luger and you do what you do to that in one of those video games. And you damn sure don't take a Sturmgewehr magazine and put it on like a Mauser of some kind. It doesn't work like that. But it's so... What I'm getting at is that this isn't just something that is on the side of the road anymore. This isn't just a fringe group of, people. There's a lot of people in our community, in the 2A community. And it's time that we start reflecting that in culture, or we're seeing more of it reflected in culture, but it's time to build our own culture up so that they can't fight us as hard as they are. Again, taking lessons from the marijuana guys, because, well, they legalized their crap in a lot of states just as much as we have made inroads with concealed carry and, what is it called? Oh, I'm going to kick myself in the butt for this one, and I don't know why I'm stumbling over it. But this is why I don't edit my videos or my audio, is because I try to show how genuine I am. It's called congressional. No, anyway, it basically means they can carry wherever the hell they want, whenever the hell they want. And there's a lot of states that are allowing that. And in the Southwest, it's traditional. It has been since the inception of the state itself in New Mexico to carry a gun openly. We have cowboys still to this day, ranchers to this day, that carry guns, sidearms, or long guns when they're in town doing business. There are some people, that are transplants to New Mexico, that freaks out. But again, knowing my geography and knowing my state very well in Southwest Colorado and the Southwest in general, this should be acceptable. And why I say that is because we still have access to the greatest outdoors everywhere. I mean, we have some of the best skiing, fishing, shooting, you name it, in the Southwest, in New Mexico specifically. Now, do it responsibly. Don't be an idiot and don't shoot around houses or maintained roads if you can help it. But you do you. What I'm saying, though, is that we need to start speaking up and talking about how cool the 2A is. And the 2A really is that cool. I mean, one of the coolest things you can do is show a new shooter, take someone that's never shot a gun before, take them out and show them the proper way to do things so that they have that positive influence. One of the biggest tragedies you can hear of in today's society is when a kid finds a gun at somebody else's house and no one bothered to educate them, so they're curious as hell and they want to start messing around with it. If you educate them correctly, what usually happens is they're like, oh no, we don't touch those. We leave those the hell alone. Or they disarm them very rapidly, meaning they drop the magazine and make sure the gun is clear. Then they put the damn thing away back where it was and say, hey, we don't mess with those. Dad taught us better, or mom taught us better. That's just what we need to advocate for. Safe storage, that's a thing. You really need to do that. But I'm also an advocate of keeping a few hot guns. I have my concealed carries always on me. I have access to a rifle all the time that is loaded. That's what I mean by hot. But that's because we live in uncertain times, 1. 2, I've trained up to do exactly that. I'm still working on my physical prowess to make it better, so that I'm even better at what I do. But the fact is, I'm no slouch with one of these if I have to use the tool. And there's still such a thing as, wild animals and dogs in northwest New Mexico that you need to worry about. There's been a couple of incidents lately where dogs have attacked people in town, and they didn't do anything about it. They just called the cops, or they tried to run away. They didn't make it very far, and they still got mauled. It's perfectly legal, I think, and justified if you take the dog out of the loop. It's sad, but if they're not being taken care of by their owner, or they don't have an owner and they're that ravenous or that bad that they're willing to attack a human, they need to be taken care of. And I don't have any compunction against that. I do like animals, but, animals are kind of friends, but they're resources too. It's just kind of cool as you start watching more closely for the cultural influences that we have in the 2A. And you see in the background there's a guy carrying a Glock. One of my favorite cartoons is Rick and Morty. I've talked about it before on my other podcast. If you look at the guns drawn in that cartoon, you'll see that they're very accurate for what he has. Most of the time they're AR derivatives, so M4s, that's what they look like for military, and Glock pistols. But they are legitimate representations of those devices, or those tools. And seeing it represented in a cartoon just reinforces that this is a ubiquitous tool. It's not to be demonized. A gun doesn't have a soul. It doesn't have a mindset. It isn't looking at trying to influence anything around it. It's the user that makes it do good or evil. And for as much as people like to say that this is a hobby, it's not really. It's more of a lifestyle. And when I say that, Colin Noir has also said that, the pew pew life. That shows that it's infiltrating. Where I'm at, in rural New Mexico, you'll see guys sporting brands for firearms, or you'll see them wearing shirts, swag from gun companies or support of the 2A. You'll see a lot of the Punisher skulls too, which kind of, You'll see a lot of the Back the Blue guys here too. That's still a little bit of heartburn, because there's a point in time you're going to have to realize that those good guys are going to be the ones that have to be mobilized to come get your guns. If they're good, they won't. They'll say, no, we're not doing that. However, most of them will enforce the law because that's what they're paid to do. It's just kind of neat. One of the coolest things I saw, which is someone reading the news and knowing how to rig the system, printed 61 guns. These are one-use guns, like Derringer types, and got $150 a piece when they handed them in, because the only requirement was they had to be functional. And as these were perfectly capable firearms, they ended up paying $150 for 60 per device, and there were 61 of these in a box. I love it, because then you could take that money and go invest in a new firearm, and that's exactly what these guys did. A couple of firearms, actually. But it shows that you're not free men don't ask permission. And if the government's willing to be stupid by trying to buy back something, a piece of property of yours, take advantage of it the best you can. I think the guy said he used something like $20 worth of PLA or whatever it was to make these. And he made a huge profit on that, because all he did was just set the machine to churn them out, and then he put them together. I think that's amazing. For the simple fact that, the government paid $150. I don't know where that story came from, but it's pretty readily available. I think it's on the Truth About Guns. I use them for a lot of gun news. But I thought for a cultural type thing was just explain the story of what I've been seeing. There's a story right now in the news, in the entertainment sector. There's some people giving Disney more guff. But I think it's because they didn't really jazz up the gun that was in the Andrew Cassian trailer they just put out. Shows a guy in the background with something that's supposed to be an AK-47 dressed up, or an AKM dressed up underfolder. But they didn't do anything really to change it. It looks like an AK. And they're catching grief for A, it looks like a realistic gun, and B, it didn't make any science fiction mods for it. So it's kind of hilarious to me that in a galaxy far, far away, the one weapon that is still found its way there is something designed from Kalashnikov. All things simple have a purpose. I love Kalashnikov's ideas. And all gun designers have some sort of philosophy if you actually look at what they're doing and you actually read some of the stuff, like the notes they have, and you read about their biographies. You find out more that, John Browning was a businessman. Guy was a mad genius engineer. But he was a die-hard businessman. He was looking to make the best firearms he could at the best prices he could, and get as many of them out and sold so that he made the best profit he could. There's nothing wrong with that. That's an American genius. So much so that he went and found manufacturing in Belgium, because they wouldn't manufacture his weapons here. He couldn't find a manufacturer that would spin up and sell them under his name. That's where the Browning high power comes from. The first Browning shotguns that were produced under his name were produced in Effen's Gunworks, because he couldn't manufacture them in the States. Some of the first BARs that came out, were actually manufactured in FN plants. Not just for the United States. Britain got a lot of them too. It's these stories that we need to tell. When the kids show those video game guns to me and they talk about them, we talk about them like, where did they come from? I do what my dad did to me when I saw them in books or magazines or comic books back in the day. Now I do it with my kids with video games and movies, because they'll ask sometimes. A lot of times, my kids surprise me and know it already.